Welcome to Season 7 of the Retail Tea Break podcast. My name is Melissa Moore, the Retail Advisor and Rethink Retail Top Retail Expert for 2024. Each week, I'll be joined by industry experts, retailers and brands to dispel the myths, share knowledge, and give you an insight into the retail industry. Listen back to previous episodes on your favourite podcast platform or, of course, on YouTube. And while you're there, please do subscribe to the podcast so that you get to listen first every single week. So in the meantime, grab that cup of tea, sit back and listen in to Season 7 of the Retail Tea Break podcast. So today I'm joined by a guest who is a product experience specialist. He strives to deliver product information management solutions for brands and retailers, contributing to a seamless and positive customer experience. Today's guest was also previously a founding team member of Amazon Fresh and AWS Marketplace, building these businesses to materiality from the very beginning, as well as leading Werby as CEO in 2023. Andy Tyra, Chief Product Officer at Akeneo, welcome to the Retail Tea Break podcast.
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on the podcast, Andy. Fascinating area that I actually feel we don't talk about enough. You know, we all these retailers sell all these products to all these customers, but there's so much more we can utilize that information for. And I suppose to give, as I said at the beginning there, to really add to the customer experience as well. But look, before we get into it, in the age old fashion of the Retail Tea Break podcast, tell us a little bit about you and the business.
Sure. Well, I've been, in retail or retail adjacent for the majority of my career in some fashion or another. I joined Amazon in 2006, spent some time in the sort of merchant facing part of that business, and then went on to participate in early stage sort of upstart businesses under the Amazon umbrella. So you mentioned Amazon Fresh. I was part of Prime Video, during its early phases. AWS Marketplace, which grew to be a pretty significant business and, kind of e-commerce hub inside of AWS's cloud offering. And a little tour of duty on Prime Video again before I finally spun out and started to do some earlier stage work, which brought me to Akeneo. And Akeneo is a company that is taking a lot of the both technical and architectural concepts that exist inside of the mentality of a company like Amazon, as well as technical investments that Amazon and other companies of its stature had the foresight to make, that then enabled them to have lots of forward-looking technical agility to say yes to lots of different opportunities to overcome technical challenges in a very ready way. And I like to think of Akeneo's technology and its product as helping our customers and others in the retail space do the same, to position themselves technically in a way more similar to companies like Amazon.
It's amazing. And I do wonder way back when, and I suppose the reason I asked this is obviously the company you're with now is growing, it's building, it's scaling. When you were with Amazon, did you know that these little offshoots, whether it was Amazon Fresh or AWS, did you know that they were going to be big? Or did you know they were going to make such a big impact? Or actually, were you just doing it because it was the newest thing, or you'd had the idea was there on the table and you were building it out?
I of course wanted to believe, right? I don't think I knew. I think, if you look at the trajectory of Amazon Fresh, it's actually a really great example of what I'm talking about. When we were building that business, we were taking fundamental pieces of Amazon's technology and business operations and kind of weaving them together in a different way to do what at the time was Amazon's first attempt at last mile promise and delivery. You could, for the first time ever, order groceries same day, have them delivered within the same 24-hour period, and an Amazon branded truck with an Amazon uniformed person would bring them to your doorstep and very famously put your newspaper on top of the tote. And at the time, we were just trying to climb that hill, and we were trying to do it in this very scrappy way. I delivered groceries at 3 a.m. to people's doorsteps because we didn't have enough drivers, right? But what that became for Amazon, that same fundamental last mile technology still exists inside of the company and has evolved and grown and is now what powers, I think, the modern, I think it's still actually known as Amazon Fresh now, but it is the last mile delivery experience that you have globally on lots of Amazon websites. And it's part of the sort of core Amazon experience where you can just choose sort of the fresh options and have it delivered within the same day or the next few hours, as well as I believe they're called Just Walk Out now. It was
Oh,
originally called
yes,
Amazon Go, and a lot of the Just Walk Out stores are branded Amazon Fresh.
that's
And
right.
and all of those early experiments and the technology that came from them were sort of continuously like split off and recombined and split off and recombined to create these new businesses. And this is sort of an example of, again, Amazon being able to just sort of say yes because under the covers, several layers down, it was technically thinking in terms of sort of reusable, generalized services, right? And that's what allowed us to take, a general catalog service, for example, and deploy it into Amazon Fresh, but also deploy it into AWS Marketplace and also deploy it into Prime Video. That's kind of, so no, I don't think we knew how big any one of these things was going to be, but I think there were leaders there at the time who had enough foresight to say, well, if we solve customer problems well, if we meet our customers where they are, and we do so in a way that maximizes our ability to reuse and keep innovating, we will discover the things that we don't yet know that will become big, right? And I think that's kind of how a lot of those businesses evolved.
Absolutely. And more excitingly so, it's obviously led you to where you are today. So, in that respect, back to Akeneo, you're a product experience company. So, look, for those listening that might not know, what does that actually mean?
It means, I mean, you can say it in a few different ways. We are originally a company that invested very deeply in a product category called PIM, or product information management, which is part of what we think of as the concept of product experience within retail, I should say specifically. And when we say the product experience company, what we're suggesting is a sort of mindset that we would like to share with our customers, which is that we don't want to start from a tool forward mentality or a data storage forward mentality. In other words, if you're trying to answer the question, well, where do I keep my product information, or how do I get a tool to help the teams that shepherd and govern my data be more efficient, you're only solving half the problem, right? And so the concept of product experience and the sort of discipline of product experience management in this arena is thinking about the decisions your end customers ultimately need to make in order to buy and have a great interaction with your product, which mostly is about setting really great promises surrounding discovery and purchase decision making. And it's increasingly rich and complex structured metadata about your product that help your product become found and compared and ultimately purchased and supported. And of course, nobody likes returns, but if you're going to have a return, you want it to be a good experience, right? So product experience management, the product experience strategy that we think our customers should have, is to imagine the scenarios they're trying to enable for customers making those decisions, and then work backwards from that to design upstream data management processes that allow you to collect information that you need to assemble in order to make those promises, and then enrich it, and then ultimately we use the word activate or syndicate out into the destination channels, whether those be an online marketplace, your direct customer website, a print catalog, your point of sale system in your stores, your customer support system, right? That's what we mean when we say product experience, is to give customers the end-to-end technology they need to execute that kind of strategy for their product in all
And
the
I think
different channels.
I'm quite amazed, Andy, that actually in all of this you keep mentioning the customer. I think there's a bit of a misconception out there that, tech companies or those within that kind of part of retail, it's very much about, the numbers and the tech. But actually you keep mentioning the importance of the customer, that actually there's no point the retailer coming to you and looking at these things without looking at the customer first. I find that amazing and quite refreshing as well that you're very much customer focused.
I think that's part of our part of our differentiation in the market. The way we think about it is to be championing this customer backwards, way of thinking, and again, like, not, of course, you'll hear that mantra in a lot of sort of product development spaces. So, and especially in tech, right?
Mm.
Building product for customers. In our case, we think that same mentality should apply to the way retailers and manufacturers and brands are all thinking about presenting the products that ultimately earn them revenue. Right? It's the same basic idea. To give you an illustration of a recent experience in my life where I had a bad product experience. Right? I needed to buy a cable tidy box, like, so, one of those, like, just little black plastic things that, like, hides all your cable nastiness, on your desk. And I needed a specific length, a very long one, right? So this is the kind of thing where, like, your ideal experience is you could get on Amazon or on Google or on whatever, and you could have like a length search or filter or whatever, right? It doesn't exist. You can find the length, but you usually have to, like, click into a detail page, find a PDF, pull it
Mm.
up, look at the length, and then, like, have 7 tabs open and start doing mental comparisons. I ultimately never even found the product I was looking for, right? And that's an example of, like, if you're selling that product, think about how customers are going to need to discover that product and what they're going to need to compare in order to do so, and then work backwards from those requirements so that you're making your life easier when you're assembling the originating data from your own suppliers and manufacturers, and enriching and normalizing the content for yourself.
So actually that's a really good illustration of how we need to bring this customer into the equation at the very early stage to ensure that they're getting the best out of everything here. But in that respect then, why do you think that retailers don't do this already? Because they don't. Let's be really honest, and I'm probably going to get into trouble now for saying that. But what are the barriers that they perceive are in place that they don't bother? It's like they jump this step.
I mean, I think there are going to be multiple answers, and it's going to be heavily dependent on which retailers and which brands, which manufacturers, which segments, et cetera, right? But I think one challenge is it's a legacy challenge. Like, a lot of these businesses have been doing some form of this for a very long time, many of them in some fashion before there was an Amazon. Maybe not
Mm.
online, but they were doing catalog, they were doing, right, like, multi-channel retail has existed for much longer than e-commerce, right?
That's
So
so true, especially as you say the catalogue. God, at this time of year, especially when I was a child, that's where you went to look for the gifts. That's where you went to write your list to Santa was these catalogues that
yeah,
were thrown on the coffee table.
yeah. So, one answer is sort of the further distance you get from the customer in the value chain, the longer the business has been operating, the less direct the incentives have ever been to change the mentality, change the technology, whatever else, right? So I think that there's
Makes
a
sense.
there's a there's an if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, the business is pretty big, products continue to sell, we have a seasonal motion that we go through, we don't like it, and maybe it's inefficient, but we've got ways to get our data out there and customers buy, right? And I think one layer of force is that. And I think the second layer is the sort of normalized technical approach, right? And historically, the way this happens, in let's call it sort of traditional retail, or traditional brands, manufacturers, et cetera, is kind of the monolith solution, right? Like, there's an ecosystem out there from a large enterprise software brand that kind of vends to you this end to end, top to bottom stack of things with 3-letter acronyms like ERP and PLM and your e-commerce
Fun
front end.
stuff.
But the reason I kind of frame everything at Akeneo the way I do, we talk about the product cloud. It's another word that we have, right? Is we're we're heavily embracing the sort of mock principles, the service-oriented architecture of today in retail, right? And trying to build our technology in that way. So, if you're engaging with Akeneo's technology, we want to not only be providing you with the tools to make your teams efficient and the place to store your data, but also a large peripheral set of easily connectable pieces of software that shepherd your data out of and into external systems and give you extra capability that's been authored by maybe Akeneo, but also maybe your integrator, or maybe yourself, or maybe another customer who's built a cool app that kind of does something interesting, right? So that's also kind of illustrative of what our sort of technical approach is. But that's why we think it resonates, or should resonate in the long run, is because of those two reasons. I think a lot of retailers who've been in business for a long time are, I don't want to say stuck. That's being too pejorative, but
they are. And I
a
think what you're describing is this agility and flexibility, which is exactly what's needed for retail in this day and age, that you can, literally move with the times, which is so important. Whereas, the old or maybe legacy, whether businesses or infrastructures, just don't have that opportunity. But I'm really keen to talk about something you mentioned a few minutes ago. Returns. How on earth, like, we know it's such a huge issue. It is across the globe. It really doesn't seem to matter what sort of vertical of retail you're in. How do you help reduce them, or I suppose give that retailer or brand a better insight into what on earth's going on?
Yeah. So first of all, just the act of embracing a product experience management strategy and implementing it thoughtfully using technology, like Akeneo PIM and the product cloud, we know leads to a reduction in returns. We measure it with many of our customers, right?
Brilliant.
And it's not even necessarily about digging super deep into why returns are happening, though we think there's an opportunity there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It's that if you are setting your customers up to make better purchase decisions, especially in the online environment where the pattern has been this deeply unsustainable. I mean, this is what we all do, right? We're not sure what we want. It's online. There's a 14-day return policy. We buy 7 things and we return 6 of them, right?
Yeah.
When they come home, we try them on. They come home, I buy it in 3 different sizes because I'm not sure, and I send the other sizes back. And it's and Amazon is leading the way. Amazon every year makes that whole process a little bit easier, and everybody has to keep pace in order to compete, right? So what that says to me is, you have to help customers make better decisions up front. Like, the reason they're buying 7 things and returning 6 is because there's some information they don't have in order to figure out which one they want to see and which one they want to buy, right? And for all products, can you get all the way there? Probably not, but can we go a lot further than we go today if you just get out on, especially in digital channels, and you look around at your average product detail page, even for apparel or things that are like very personal and very tactile, right? You'll find these incredibly sparse experiences, like 6 bullet points, 2 photos. They look like they're photos that are originating from some supplier, no rich content, you can tell, like, not a lot of thought was actually put behind what the customer really needs to know in order to make a great purchase decision, right? And so if that's the experience customers see, which is what a lot of products look like even on Amazon
100%.
today, right?
Yeah.
Their answer is, okay, well, it's kind of no skin off my back. I'll just buy a bunch of things and send back the ones I don't want, right? So now imagine that we're able to build a little connector, right, into a retailer's return system, start collecting, analyzing return reasons, and bringing that all the way back into their enrichment process for their data, or even further, all the way back into their supplier data acquisition process. Well, now the humans, and let's be real, it's the age of AI, machines can make better decisions at those early stages based on the real data about why products are being returned, right? So it creates this closed loop where, like, returns happen, analysis occurs, insight reaches folks very, very far upstream in the data supply chain, and they can improve it to reduce returns, right? And then we think that creates this flywheel of improvement that can go on sort of forever as our customers operate their business.
It's amazing. So it's taking action. And actually, to come back to your very first point there, you're taking action by giving the customer more data, more information, instead of just putting your head in the sand, which an awful lot of retailers are doing right now. But also, I'm loving the fact that this then goes back through the supply chain. So you're trying to fix the problem or at least change the issue slightly to, again, to be seen to be doing something about it. So it feels like it's win-win here because it almost feels like you're attacking this returns problem from both ends.
Exactly right. It's, and we think in order to do the second thing I said very well, you need to do the first thing, right?
Mm.
But if you've carved this pathway where you are working backwards from great experiences at points of decision, whether they be digital detail pages or points of sale or whatever else, then you can create this closed loop. And our technology is designed to help make that easy for you, like regardless of which walled garden you happen to be playing in from a from an ERP point of view, for example, right? We want to make sure that you can easily connect your systems into this thing so that the descriptive information about your moneymaker, about your products, the things you are actually selling, can be continuously improved based on downstream performance in various ways, whether that is just pure sales velocity, whether that is things like returns and analysis, whether it's analysis of user generated content, user reviews, and so forth. We're also looking at search and discovery and like what kind of insights can we directly infer there, and again bring all the way back so that, hey, we can start to advise you within the product information management component of the product cloud within the PIM to author your descriptions differently, for example, right? That's the idea.
It's starting to really feel like it's the missing part of the jigsaw because again you're speaking to the supplier here, you're moving on the data, you're speaking to the customer. But one thing that strikes me though, look, sustainability obviously is
Mm-hmm.
high on most companies. I want to say it's high on their agendas. I suppose this whole idea of being more eco-friendly, listening to the customer, because a lot of customers are really valuing the idea of sustainability a lot more now. I presume then this fits in there really well for companies to kind of get better insight, but also to take action.
It does. It does. The sustainability challenge, I think, first of all, it's twofold, right? One, I think consumers are changing their mindset, right? I
Mm.
think consumers are, especially given what's been happening from a macro point of view and what's happening from an environmental point of view, every year more and more of us are connecting the dots and saying, maybe I don't feel personal responsibility, but I see how our collective behaviors in aggregate influence this. I'm interested in knowing where my products come from, why, how they were made, how durable they're going to be. I'm interested in maybe fewer things that are of higher quality, right? I think that is a general trend. And then, the second piece of this is regulation, right? The digital product passport is coming in Europe,
That's it. Yeah.
and it's coming. I think those two things influence each other, right? And so we need to be ready. And this is an incredibly complex data management problem, first of all, because you're managing the relationship of, cascading and encapsulating data sets are, related to sustainability. If you're at the end of the value chain, you need to understand how it relates to all of the data upstream of you, and it's ultimately your responsibility. So you're going to see, the retailers putting a ton of pressure upstream on their supply chain in order to go get this data and pull it together, and it has to relate and it has to connect. And of course, the second challenge is, it's, yes, a data management challenge for compliance, but it's also a product experience opportunity, right?
Mm.
We have customers inside of Akeneo who do a great job at this and who have actually built their business around this idea of sustainability. And,
Wow.
you go to their website and it's full of incredible, transparent data about everything I just said, where their products come from, and their messages. These are very high quality. They'll last you for years. They don't change, right? It's a very different kind of brand that I'm talking about here, and they use Akeneo's technology to facilitate that. And that was the reason why they needed us, right? Was they
Wow.
recognized, I think, earlier than most, one, this is coming. Two, that's the way it's their strategy to sort of build around it. And because it was their strategy, sort of, they were way ahead of the curve. They were also way out saying, hey, like we need to be thinking about this in this way, and this product experience management mindset, and then Akeneo, PIM, and Product Cloud as the tools to sort of facilitate that make a lot of sense to us, and they've seen an incredible amount of success, with that approach.
That's fantastic. And I think, as you say, it's coming. And yes, regulation is going to force a lot of companies, it'll force their hand here. But also, as you said, it's adding huge value to the customers. So that's got to be worth thinking about for the retailer as well. Because I presume the company you spoke about there, they must have really loyal customers because, of course, they trust them. They feel the company has integrity. That's got to be win-win for everyone involved.
I mean, we know that what drives, especially if it is brand loyalty, but I honestly think
Mhm.
for a long-term relationship with any product has its roots in storytelling in some capacity, right? And this, I don't know why I'm being, the company is called Asket, so that's the brand. We talk about them publicly, so I think I can do it here.
Well, well
uh
done to them in that respect. I think A, as you said, for having the foresight, but B, I've no doubt their customers trust them. There's integrity there. They stick true to their values, and bringing you on board, I think, as you said, just gets them out in front. They're obviously leading the pack in that respect.
Absolutely, I think they create a really exemplary experience around what this is, what I personally think it needs to look like, and what at least the European Union is saying it will look like, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're in the business of both providing the general capabilities that help you do this kind of work backwards and manage all of this data in a sane way. And we've also got some specific components inside of the product cloud oriented around digital product passports, right? So there's a digital product passport app that our customers can use to very quickly create a basic sort of QR code based validation and display some of the necessary compliance information for DPP around a couple of product categories, batteries, I think, and a few others. So we're making very direct investments, and we ourselves are trying to sort of lead with this message and say, hey, like, we think this is where it's all going. Like, we're here to help. This is specifically what we're all about at Akeneo.
And I am sure there are many retailers and brands very grateful for that because, as you say, legislation's coming, as is compliance. So if they can bring you on board to help with that, then I think that's well worth their time. But look, final question then for you, Andy. Obviously, we know that legislation's coming up and you're supporting the retailers and brands across Europe with this. But what else is coming up now for you and Akeneo over the next 6 months?
Yeah, it is. Of course, I'm going to talk about the thing everybody's talking about, is the dawn of the AI era, right?
We
Um,
have to. As you know
we,
what, I think every episode on this season's had to
uh,
talk about it. So you're dead right. Get in
I
there
know
while
I've
you
gone,
can.
I've listened to a few of them. So like, I don't know. There's a raging debate about at Akeneo. We actually have our own AI core team. We literally call it core AI. It's a platform we use internally to sort of centralize our investment in AI, both leveraging some of the public models, but also building some of our own owned technology and our own owned models to help our customers with everything from sort of data cleansing and normalization and onward, from the supplier facing end to enriching their products when it's inside of the PIM, to the activation and syndication process as it leaves the product cloud and goes to marketplaces or points of sale or e-commerce websites. So in this space, we're already doing those three things. But what we see is sort of even before our customers start to take advantage of all of those things, we see that the industry at large is constantly wrestling with sort of modeling problems and like contract adherence problems, if that makes any sense. I want to send data to Amazon. Amazon gives me a big API, and I got to make everything match their requirements as specified in the API, or my product gets rejected. And we're doing a lot of that, right? And we're doing a lot of, okay, so in order to do that, then I need to go get data from my suppliers, from my ERP, from my PLM, from some spreadsheets that some people have somewhere. And I need to create a model where I can manage it reasonably toward all these end requirements. And we're seeing that our customers still spend an inordinate amount of time there in either the initial modeling phase or the modeling migration phase. And we are investing very deeply, and we think we can really help solve this problem with our own approach to AI. So that is certainly one that we're very excited about. And then some planned products, things I could say, you know, will likely come into existence in the next 12 months. But a lot of what we think we'll do, we will discover we're capable of, and then build a product around it, you know, in the next 6 to 12 months. And it's a very exciting space, honestly, to be applying this technology in right now, because I think we have dreams of what this technology might do in many other categories, but here now, this, you know, get structured data out of less structured data, or turn one structure into a different structure, like the tech is here. So we're just trying to apply it in the most useful ways we possibly can, as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. And again, to, I suppose, bring it back to what you said originally, all of this then is helping the customer as well.
Yeah.
I love it. I really, really do. So look, if you've enjoyed today's podcast episode, please do like and share it. Remember, you can listen back to past Retail Tea Break episodes on your favorite podcast platform, or of course, over on YouTube. Do then connect with myself and Andy on LinkedIn, and obviously check out Akeneo's website. I'll obviously pop the details in the show notes today. And then remember, you can find the show notes and the transcript for today's episode on theretailadvisor.ie. Andy, thank you so much for your time today.
Really appreciate you having me. This was fun.